Hello, welcome everyone, and thanks for joining with us today for the webinar Smart Approaches for Implementation of Water Safety and Security Plans during Pandemics. My name is Indrajit Uday. I'm the Sri Lanka coordinator of the International Water Association. So IW Sri Lanka is thrilled to organize this webinar with the support of IWA India Secretariat and Institution of Engineers Sri Lanka Water Forum. So as you see from our agenda, today we have 5 panelists sharing their experience with us, and Professor Mohan from IIT Madras, India, is going to chairing the session. So today we have Rory Moses from WHO, Switzerland, Asoka Jayaratne from Yarra Valley Water, Australia, Tonya from WHO, Vietnam, SK Veragoda from Ministry of Water Supply, and Lakshman Attanayaka from Act Smart Solutions Private Limited, Sri Lanka. So during the presentations, we would like to ask from all you to please type your valuable questions in the question box at the bottom of your Zoom control panel, and we will bring these questions to the dedicated Q&A session, which will be followed by all the presentations at the end. So without further ado, I would like to introduce the moderator today, Professor Mohan. Professor Mohan is currently the Institute Chair Professor in the Environmental and Water Resources Engineering Division of the Department of Civil Engineering, Indian Institute of Technology, Madras, India. He obtained his Masters of Engineering in Water Resources Engineering in 1983 and PhD in Water and Environmental Engineering in 1987. As of 2019, he has published over 200 research papers and technical reports on several topics of environmental and water resource engineering. He is a recipient of several publication awards or recognitions, including Pennyquick Award, Institution of Engineers Award, Indian Waterworks Association Award, etc. He is currently the chairman of State Expert Appraisal Committee, Tamil Nadu State, and serving as an independent director of Tamil Nadu Small Industries Development Corporation Limited. Professor Mohan is also the chairman of IWA India National Committee and has been a strong pillar of the IWA Foundation in India. So I would like to hand over the session to Professor. So Professor Mohan, the floor is yours.
Very good afternoon to all of you. I also join Indrajit to welcoming all of you for this webinar. This webinar is very important, especially in this period of pandemic. And we have a galaxy of experts from WHO and also from Australia, who has really done the water safety and security plan, and from Vietnam, who are also from WHO, and 2 installments from Sri Lanka. So in fact, it is going to be a very useful time in the afternoon that we are talking about something which are very, everyone wants to ask some answers from some experts. So I think that's a very important thing. So my duty is to introduce the subject to all of you. So the main webinar is on smart approaches for implementing water safety and security plans during pandemic. According to the WHO guidelines for drinking water quality, water safety plans are recommended as the most effective means of consistently ensuring the safety and acceptability of a drinking water supply system. WSSP require a risk assessment, including all steps in water supply from catchment to consumer, followed up by implementation and monitoring of risk assessment control measures with a focus on high priority risk. The WHO notes also that where risk cannot be immediately addressed, the WSP approach allows for improvements to be implemented systematically over time. So this is a case under current situation. WSP should also be implemented within a public health context responding to clear health-based targets, and quality checked through independent surveillance. The water security and safety plan is an essential thing where scientists, policymakers, stakeholders from various sectors discuss the diverse facets of water security and its relation to health and also the climate change. Moreover, IWA has a specific focus on water safety plans, given its primary role in ensuring safe drinking water for all. And all of you are aware now, you can't miss the headlines in the newspapers or TVs about COVID-19. So this COVID-19 has dominated the news cycle in the past almost 10 months. As the global health community tracks the spread of COVID-19 virus, it is important for water professionals to keep updated on potential impacts, especially on water. The ground-like spikes on the surface of coronavirus give this virus family its name corona, which is Latin for ground. So what is the fate of coronavirus in the aquatic environment? And should we be worried about the efficacy of water treatment, filtration, and disinfection process for coronavirus removal and inactivation? If you look at the answer, a very short answer is there is no impact if we take proper precautions and situation. But the long answer is this is a new virus without an extensive body of literature on the effectiveness of water and wastewater treatment process. So in this context of the pandemic, having potable water for hygiene and an adequate safe sanitation system are basic for this coronavirus prevention. So the following questions which are come to mind to every one of us. The first question is, what information do we have that is related to coronavirus in water systems? The second question is, what can water system operators do to protect water to ensure public health? A third question is, what is the role of digitized information in water safety planning? And as a corollary question, are the latest innovations in ICT like artificial intelligence, cloud, and data mining strategies helpful in providing the control for the water safety? These are the questions come to mind of every one of us who have been here to answer these questions. The world-renowned and leading experts from WHO, Switzerland, WSSP, and digital experts from Australia, Vietnam, Sri Lanka have come together to discuss about these issues. And I am confident that their presentation and the subsequent questions and answering session would provide tangible answers to the questions we discussed. So as mentioned by Indrajit, there are 5 speakers and we'll go this way. First, I think I will introduce the speaker and then he will be making a presentation. And then the second speaker. So the speakers will continue, all the 5 speakers. Meanwhile, you can nurture the questions and then put it in the question box or the chat box as mentioned by Indrajit. And then towards the end, after the presentation, we will ask some general questions and also we'll take up some 5 or 6 questions from the audience. So without much change in time or the loss of time, I am very glad to introduce Rory Moses McKeown. So Rory Moses holds a PhD in microbiology and has worked in the water industry in both academic and water utility settings. He is currently supporting the World Health Organization's global activities on drinking water, quality management, including water safety planning, with a particular focus on climate resilience, working from community to water utility to government levels. I think none other than him can talk about on this particular topic. And he is going to give a talk on improving the knowledge on global challenges in ensuring water safety and security, WHO's perspective. Over to Rory Moses.
Thank you very much, Professor Mohan, for the kind introduction. And hello, everyone, and thank you very much for your attention. So during my presentation today, I will be giving you just a brief run through how the current COVID-19 pandemic is impacting our wash services globally. I'll provide some of the highlights from WHO's best practice guidance for managing these impacts, and I'll be explaining how water safety planning can support more resilient water supply during the pandemic that we're experiencing at the moment. And lastly, then I'll guide you to some key WHO resources and tools for your further information. Okay, so having access to safely managed wash services really is critical to protect human health during outbreaks. So this would include having adequate quantities of safe water, both for drinking and for hand hygiene. Okay, this includes not only households, but also key institutions, such as healthcare facilities, as well as schools. Now, in terms of cost benefit, we know that investing in WASH is one of the most cost-effective strategies for pandemic preparedness. Okay, having a strong WASH management and adequate service delivery plays a key role in breaking the cycle of infection and preventing the spread and transmission of disease. Despite this, though, we still have over 2 billion people that lack access to safely managed drinking water services. And if we include some hygiene elements, this figure now is closer to about 3 billion people globally who lack access to clean water and soap. Okay, now, the COVID-19 pandemic has really shone a light on this inequality, and it's heightened awareness on the extent and consequences of this access gap. So in terms of drinking water suppliers, the COVID-19 pandemic has impacted them on multiple fronts. Okay, so some examples would include staff absenteeism, so workers having to isolate or quarantine, or else not being able to attend work due to illness. We're seeing the need to reallocate limited resources, and this can lead to the suspension of some medium and longer term planning and strategy implementation. There can also be supply chain issues. So for example, essential treatment chemicals and also consumables that would be used for monitoring and testing. Okay, this can include critical spare parts, fuel, as well as essential services from third-party contractors. So for example, contractors that may be responsible for repairing pipeline breaks, or also contractors responsible for laboratory testing. Okay, we've also seen issues with site accessibility, okay, as a result of travel restrictions, and this can impact operators being able to do basic operations and maintenance, but also regular monitoring and testing. We're seeing also that consumers may be out of work and have a limited ability to pay for their water services. Okay, this can lead to revenue reduction and compromised service delivery. Now, all of this in turn can lead to reputational impacts and ultimately the loss of consumer confidence. So overall, we see on multiple fronts the different ways in which the current pandemic can impact both the safety and security of our water supply systems. Now, in my own personal experience working with water utilities, I've seen that there's nothing quite like an emergency to brutally expose any existing shortcomings within an organization. Okay, if you have existing challenges, say for example, with human resources or staff cover or unreliable supply chains, you'll find that these issues will be exacerbated and hugely amplified during an emergency or a crisis situation. So it's really crucial that you consider a proactive risk assessment and management approach to identify and manage these issues before they occur. Now, in terms of some of the guidance to help with best practice, in July 2020, the WHO published an updated interim technical brief outlining the best practice for wash management in the context of COVID-19. Now, in essence, this technical brief recommends that the existing WHO guidance on the safe management of drinking water services still applies in the context of the COVID-19 pandemic. Okay, so if all of these aspects are in place and are robust, these measures should be appropriate in order to deal with the current pandemic. So these examples include protecting your source waters, okay, treating water at the point of distribution, collection, or consumption, And lastly, ensuring that the treated water at the home or household level is safely stored and handled. Okay, and water safety plans provide a robust framework for these measures to be planned, implemented, and monitored. Okay, so for those of you who may be unfamiliar with water safety plans, in essence, they are a proactive risk management system to ensure safe drinking water. Okay, and this is achieved by understanding your complete water supply system from the catchment right through to the point of consumption. Okay, identifying where and how problems could arise within your system, putting barriers and management systems in place to stop these problems before they happen, and lastly, making sure that all parts of your system continue to work properly. So the WSP framework we found is extremely flexible, and it can be applied to suit many diverse socioeconomic settings, including both rural and urban water supply systems. And by 2017, a survey conducted by WHO with the IWA had found that over 90 countries in all regions across the globe were implementing at least one water safety plan or equivalent risk management system. Now, why are people doing this? Well, the benefits of water safety planning vary depending on all the various stakeholders involved, but we see benefits for the water suppliers, consumers, and the health authorities or regulators. Okay, so in terms of some example outcomes that you may observe in the shorter term from WSP implementation, this can include things like improved understanding of your system as well as stakeholder collaboration, improved operations, monitoring and management. We see cost savings achieved through improved operational and monitoring efficiencies. There can be reductions in non-revenue water, which leads to increased revenue for the water supplier. You find there are strengthened infrastructure throughout your system, both from the catchment right through to the consumer. And we also find that the improvement planning aspect of water safety planning can be a very useful tool to leverage financial support. Now, over the longer term, we see WSP impacts. Now, these impacts can include improvements to water quality and also aspects of quantity. We can see improved service delivery and ultimately better health outcomes for consumers. Okay, so more recently, we've been broadening the scope of water safety plans and including a much stronger focus on climate resilience. Okay, we've seen that the WSP framework can effectively manage both current and future risks from climate variability and change. So some of these risks include, for example, impacts from flooding. This could be a deterioration of source water quality or physical damage to critical assets and infrastructure. Impacts from drought. Okay, this can badly affect the quantity of water that's available, impacting water security. There can be impacts from increased surface and water temperatures. This can compromise the microbiological safety of your water supply, increasing how pathogens may survive within your distribution system or source waters, and also can impact the stability of chlorine for disinfection throughout your distribution system. We've also seen impacts from sea level rise. Okay, this can include, again, damage to critical assets and infrastructure from physical flooding, but also saline intrusion into low-lying coastal aquifers. Now, when we talk about resilience in the context of climate for water safety plans with water suppliers, we talk about being able to anticipate events from climate change. Okay, so being able to anticipate and adapt and prepare for events before they happen. Okay, and when these events do happen, we talk about being able to respond, okay, and being able to cope, meaning being able to continue to provide an adequate minimum level of service during the event. Post-event, we would expect utilities to be able to recover rapidly and ensure normal operations and service. And finally, display the ability to learn from the event, adapt your system, both in terms of management and infrastructure, and strengthen your resilience for future events. So very much a lot of what we talk about in the context of climate, this resilience is also relevant to situations, emergencies, and shocks like global pandemics. So traditionally, we focused resilience in terms of climate impacts, but more recently, we've been able to broaden this and ensuring water safety and security both now and into the future by providing resilience to shocks and emergencies beyond climate change. So this can include resilience to outbreaks and pandemics. Okay, in this context, water safety planning, or water safety and security planning, as it's referred to in Sri Lanka, it can build resilience to pandemics by ensuring adequate emergency response planning, having contingency plans in place for staff and training to maintain the required levels of service, having adequate supply chain contingency for essential chemicals, materials, and contractors. Your water safety and security plan can include links to broader business continuity planning. And lastly, and importantly, how it can manage reoccupancy risks in buildings. So situations where you may have stagnant water within institutions and buildings as a result of the extensive lockdowns that have been occurring. So how you can imagine, how you can manage risks, for example, from Legionella or other pathogens in buildings that have remained dormant for long periods of time. So we will explore in our following sessions with some nice practical examples from our country colleagues. We'll look at some of these practical challenges that suppliers have been facing. We'll share some innovative insights as to how water suppliers are applying their water and safety security plans in the context of the COVID-19 pandemic. So in terms of some supporting resources for resilient water safety and security planning, I'd like to refer you to the WHO Water Sanitation and Hygiene website, and in particular, the technical brief we mentioned earlier on wash management for COVID-19, and also our guidance document on climate resilient water safety planning. Okay, we also have many other resources there to support your water safety planning activities. And lastly, Professor Mohan mentioned earlier, I would like to encourage you all to take a look at the joint IWA-WHO initiative, the Water Safety Portal. Okay, this is where you can find many peer-reviewed WSP resources, share experiences, and keep up to date on WSP news and events. Okay, joining is free. We have a quarterly newsletter, and I'd strongly encourage you all to sign up today if you haven't done so already. So thank you very much indeed, and I'll hand back to Professor Mohan.
Very informative lecture. Thank you, Rory Moses. Now we'll go to the second speaker. This is Mr. Asoka Jayaratne. So Asoka Jayaratne is the water quality specialist in Yarra Valley Water in Melbourne, Australia. He is basically a civil engineer with over 30 years experience in the water industry. Asoka has been with Yarra Valley Water since 1997. His main responsibilities include development and implementation of water safety plans, referred to as risk management plans, and the certified hazard identification and critical control points, hookup system, development of water quality improvement strategies and programs, staff and contractor WSP training, regulatory compliance, regulatory and special investigations. Asoka has also been responsible for managing and implementing several innovative research projects. Asoka has been assisting WHO since 2009 for several WSP initiatives, including authoring, reviewing WHO and IWA publications, WSP capacity building program, including training and auditing of the Philippines, Vietnam, India, Malaysia, Thailand, Ghana, Indonesia, and Sri Lanka. So I think he has a real expertise on water safety and security plan, and he is going to talk about on understanding the ground realities in implementation of WSSP during pandemics. So over to Asoka, please.
Thank you, Professor Mohan, for that kind introduction. Welcome, everyone. I'm going to talk about some practical aspects of water safety plans. So I'll start off with a brief introduction to Yarra Valley Water and how we have been implementing water safety plans in Australia. Then I'll talk about the preparedness before pandemic. Rory mentioned, and if you're not prepared, it's very difficult to manage things during incidents and emergencies. Then I'll talk about some of the activities we did during the pandemic to make sure that we provide safe and continue to supply safe and drinking water to the customers. And then I'll finish off with what's going to happen next. What's the new normals going to be for all of us after the pandemic. So for those of you who don't know a lot about Australia or Yarra Valley Water, we are one of the water utilities in the state of Victoria, and we are in Melbourne. That little box at the bottom of the map is where Melbourne is, and we supply water and sanitation services to 2 million customers around the world, and we are one of the world leaders in implementing water safety plans. We have been implementing water safety plans since 1999. In Australia, our national guideline is the Australian Drinking Water Guidelines. That's the document that we all use, all water suppliers, water utilities use in Australia. In the state of Victoria, it's legal. It's a legal requirement for all 18 water utilities to develop, implement, and maintain water safety plans. Just to give you a snapshot of how things panned out, we are no different to other parts of the world. We had a small wave and then it's a big second wave. So since mid-March, we've been working from home, most of us at Yarra Valley Water, except the people who work in the field. I'll talk about it in a minute. And one of the epidemiologist experts wrote to one of the newspapers a couple of days ago, and they said Melbourne had one of the toughest restrictions and also best compliant public. So we've been in lockdown for 139 days, and it ended 2 days ago. So we are a little bit free, but we had to be very careful. And we had, I think last 2 days, we had 0 cases. So how prepared were we when the pandemic hits? Now, I'm not going to talk much about water safety plan, what's in the water safety plan. Rory mentioned about it, and Nia will talk about a bit more details, but there is a requirement for water safety plan implementation. You must have procedures and processes in place for normal and emergency conditions. So that's what that module 8 on the right-hand side. Emergency is not new to, especially Melbourne water industry. Now, Rory mentioned in his presentation about droughts and floods as climate impacts, and we experience it regularly. So droughts, so bushfires, we are not new to bushfires and droughts, and also heavy rain and floods. So we have very well-established emergency management frameworks. And it's not just the Yarra Valley Water Framework, it's consistent framework, which is called Australian Inter-Service Incident Management System, that's used by not just water authorities, gas and oil industry, electricity supply, police, Victoria Police, etc. So we all use the same framework, same terminology, same, when we talk during an incident, we all talk the same language. So before the pandemic, we had an emergency management in structure. We have very well developed water quality emergency response plans, water supply continuity emergency response plans. We do use a lot of partners and contractors to deliver some of our services. They all must have emergency response plans. One of the important things to remember is we also had, before the pandemic, the option to work from home. Some people work part-time, and we had the systems in place. So anyone working from home can access all the systems. But also, more importantly, for our consumers, our customers, there are a lot of facilities or services that we provide that can be accessed through your phone, through an app, or using the internet. So, as we said, we already had remote access to our systems, for example, SCADA control, and our operators can basically run the system from home. And that used to happen, for example, if an incident happens after hours, they will run it from home. So they can operate the system other than repairing or a break or something like that. They can run the pumps. They can run the system from remotely. We also have what we call a works management system in place, so we can get things moving very quickly using the works management portal. We also had what we call tough books, field computing, and our field staff can access our GIS system and other systems to look at the network details, network information. We also have a lot of data analytics tools. For example, so I can access all my water quality data from home, and these dashboards were prepared way before the pandemic happened. One of the important aspects of water safety plans and supplying water is audits. Now, when I say audits, I'm talking about water quality related, water supply related audits. And we have a system that I can go and input all the audit outcomes into the portal, and then I can run a report to show how we're complying with audits. And we've got what we call compliance officers every day out in the field, and also we do internal and external audits. Now, this is something we launched just before the pandemic hit, and there's a link to the website. You can go and see what works is happening right now as I speak. I can go and see what work's happening. So what you see in the screen, the blue dots have some numbers. That means there are 7 or 8 or number of jobs in that area. When I zoom in, I can see the details. And then you can click onto it. And for example, the one that I've chosen with the exclamation mark is an emergency work. So our customers can see this. And if all of a sudden there's no water, or they get a bit of discolored water, they can actually check what's happening on their, in their street or nearby areas. So we had some good things in place, good controls in place, but it doesn't mean we are perfect. So what happened during the incident? The first thing we did was, as I mentioned before, that we had that structure in place, we basically launched the incident management team. And we also have what we call business continuity plans. What happens if our office gets burned down completely today? All our data is backed up, so still we can work from remotely. So we had to dust off those continuity plans. So on the water supply side, or the water security side, again, water and wastewater services, we have to continue doing that, and we continue with planned and unplanned works. I'm not going to talk too much about the water security side. I'm going to show an example of how we continue to deliver the services during the pandemic related to water quality. Obviously, safe drinking water is #1 priority for us, and the WSP comes into the picture when you do that. So here's an example. Rory mentioned, during the pandemics, you could easily have supply shortages, raw material shortages. So we had a pandemic plan. Our laboratory had a pandemic plan. Actually, they had the word pandemic written into that. I was a little bit surprised. So what we did was we looked at what can go wrong. Can we get all our supplies? We talked to our suppliers. Are there enough materials for things like laboratory supplies, as well as things like sodium hypochlorite and chemicals. We also set up a quick secondary laboratory, so people could, the samplers and the key people who are doing the testing, the analysts could work remotely from the main lab if something happens. And we also figured out a risk-based scaling down program. What happens? We want, if things get really bad, we won't be able to sample, do the sampling. So we established a risk-based approach to scale down. So this is some of the examples. We also continued the normal work. We continue to review our water safety plan, implemented normal programs, cleaning of water mains cleaning, water mains construction, renewals. We continued business as usual. Again, I want to highlight here that we also continued with all the activities like auditing, including certification audits and regulated audits. And virtual training, we also continued with virtual training. So we had multiple incidents. Even now, as we speak, we are running incidents, and we effectively run those incidents because the incident management structure has been developed and in place before the pandemic. Customers, as I mentioned, is #1 priority, and some may be experiencing some financial difficulties paying the bill. So we have actually expanded our programs already in place for hardship customers to help them during the pandemic. So what's going to happen after COVID? It's not going to be the same. Some of us could be working more from home, but we are very much concerned about safety and well-being of our staff and employees. No, if you don't look after your staff, you're not going to get the outcomes you need, or you won't be able to effectively supply water and sewerage services. Now, this is the dashboard from our an extract of the dashboard from our health department that continuously update the COVID. So I'm not going to talk about this, but this is something they did in the pandemic. So we should be, as water suppliers, be able to have dashboards to analyze our data. What we are looking at is doing more remote things, remote control, remote access, controlling things more remotely, things like using augmented reality. We definitely will be looking at expanding smart data analytical tools to make life much easier. We've developed some innovative products, I'm not going to go into details, to install online analyzers, and we will continue to invest on these remote monitoring techniques. And also during the pandemic, or sort of just post-pandemic, we also launched something for our plumbers who use our information, and it is called Pipe Tracker. You will be able to go into that link and actually look at the pipes or the water mains on your street, and you can zoom in and you can look at the details if you're doing some work for your customers. So that's a snapshot of what really happens in the ground. And thank you very much. I'll hand over back to Professor Mohan.
Thank you, Asoka. It was really very, in fact, I also feel that the time is very limited. You have really a lot of experience, but nonetheless, it was a very informative lecture. Now, the third lecture will be by Mr. Tuan Mihia. So he's a master in environmental science, graduated from Indiana University, USA in 1997. Has been working for WHO in Vietnam for 15 years as a technical officer in environmental health. Right from joining WHO, Mr. Mihia got involved in introducing WHO water safety plan concept and guidelines into Vietnam, and managing WHO projects to support relevant stakeholders in implementing water safety plans in both urban and rural areas. His efforts and dedication to water safety plan program over the past 15 years have helped Vietnam become one of the 2 leading countries in Southeast Asia in implementing water safety plan. So I think he has a vast experience, especially on water safety plan, and he is going to talk about on introduction of the to risk minimization approach through WSSP concept and lessons learned from Vietnam. So over to Nagia.
Thank you very much, Professor Mohan, and welcome all participants. I'm very glad to join your webinar today to talk about 2 main things. First is the water safety plan concept, and the second is the lesson learned from Vietnam. So first of all, the first question raised to all of us, what should be concerned about the water supply system? When we have a water supply system, hazards in water supply system from catchment to taps like arsenic, cyanide, pesticides, or pathogens is a really concern. We also concerned about waterborne diseases and outbreaks linked to the hazards. And we care for water quality parameters to meet water quality standards from all like physical, chemical, and biological factors. And especially we concern about security, water security, including terrorist attacks, our water sources and system, or also like water scarcity. So the next question could be, what measures to be used to reduce that risk? Here is a diagram to tell you all about what I mentioned before. All the threats to our water supply system. And now, why WSP is needed for our system? As you know, right after the treatment plants, usually water is drinkable. However, through the distribution network, those water can meet the national standards, but nobody is sure and dare to drink directly from the tap. Why? Because water is recontaminated and our water source is seriously polluted. I can show you in the next slides. So currently in many countries, especially in developing countries, we usually apply traditional approach. It means testing water quality at user points. But this approach doesn't work very well because what we call like too little and too late. I explain in it later. So we need to have a new approach, which is more proactive and preventive. So now looking at the pipe network in Hanoi City or in many other developing countries, you can see why, pipe work can be a potential risk. You can see like in many places, drinking water pipe is installed together in the wastewater channel. Or in Hanoi, you can see like a pipe network look like a spaghetti from Italy, And you also can witness like the pipe water is broken and then the wastewater can, intrude into the pipe water system. And regarding the water sources, you can see like the pesticide spraying everywhere, or vegetable is washed at the water source, or land, exploitation can destroy like surface water quality. And recently in Vietnam, we have water sources contaminated by illegal dumping used oil, causing a lot of problem for thousands of households. Now I return to the traditional approach. It means testing water quality at the end point of users. So why it is not good approach? Because you can see like a little sample of water can be tested. It's not reflecting the whole water production. And if we spend, more time and money for testing water quality, so this approach become more expensive. And the problem is that we are not able to identify where pollution takes place in the whole production system. And once we have testing results, it's too late for you know interaction or to mitigation of the hazards. So that's why it's called too little, too late approach. So why WSP is needed? If we consider our water production system, it divided into four, components: from water sources, treatment plant, distribution, and consumers. You can see hazards from the water sources can be very huge. And then step by step, due to the barriers system, we can reduce the hazards and we can make our customers satisfied, happy. Dr. Rory, in his presentation, already talked about the definition of water safety plan. In my turn, I just want to elaborate. So water safety plan is a combination of identification and comprehensive management of risk using multiple obstacles or barriers to ensure water quality, and closely combination of measures to ensure safe water supply, including water source protection, infrastructure development, operation and maintenance, and monitoring and evaluation of water quality. So if we complete all like comprehensive approach this way, we already implement WSP concept. You may come up with the question, what does WSP do? So you can see like at the water source, WSP can minimize contamination of source water. At the treatment plant, water safety plan can reduce or remove contamination by treatment. And especially for distribution system, WSP can prevent recontamination during storage, distribution, and consumer practices. So that's all the benefits, or that's all the function of water safety plan. When we apply water safety plan under like WHO guidelines, we have 11 modules we need to complete. So I have not enough time to go through all 11 modules, but I can emphasize the core modules in the 11 modules. In module 3, it is very important that we can understand, we can identify hazards and hazard events, because if we complete this module very well, we can identify what's going wrong with our system in order to identify what is the measures to mitigate, to reduce the risk. So in this module, water supplier or water safety plan team have to identify hazards at the water source, hazards at the water treatment, and also like in distribution network. So the two main things we need to remember is the definition of hazard event and hazards. Yeah. So the water safety plan team have to work on that and come up with the analysis of the risk, hazards, and hazard events, and come up with the modern for determine control measures. Here is some example of how control measures are identified in Vietnam. Here you can see like water intakes of one water supplier in Hải Dương province. You can see like the boat crossing every day, and oil spillage, is very difficult to handle. But when water supplier applying water safety plan, the team can find out, a very simple solution. The measure is just like a floating, to prevent, to block oil spillage. Or in other supplier, they find that construct building the dam can be preventing like soil intrusion in some places, or using fish tank can be, to identify hazards before coming into the water treatment plant is another example. So there are a lot of control measures can be found if we identify the hazard events in the module 3. Now I would like to share with you how water safety plan has been implemented in Vietnam. In Vietnam, we take a approach, comprehensive approach, including like working on policy, institutional setting, including regulation and national program for water safety and water quality standards. We combine with the training consulting for raising awareness of water suppliers and also like health sector for water quality. And we do advocacy and communication on water safety plan. We organize study tours in other countries like UK, Australia, Singapore, or Malaysia to learn from them. And we organize workshops for sharing experience among water suppliers. And now we are working on scaling up water safety plan based on the experience from piloted models in the country. So we got some lesson learned. In fact, water safety plan concept can be bought in by all water suppliers. It's difficult, but it's possible. However, water safety plan need to be embedded into the national system in order to ensure water safety plan is sustainable in the country level, at the country level. So it's very important, things we realize. And also we need to have a legal basis to include water safety plan into the law of drinking water. In Vietnam, we still have to develop the law on drinking water. So water safety plan need to be included in it. We also realized that there is important role of provincial steering committees on water safety plan because it is out of the reach, out of the scope of water suppliers. When water source issues is coming in, we need to have a collaboration among like many departments at the local government. So that's why steering committee is very important that way. And when we implement water safety plan is leading to new water quality standard and also leading to stronger surveillance system. And in turn, the whole system surveillance system can improve water safety plan. Another issue for Vietnam is water tariff. Currently, water tariff is decided by the local government, and it doesn't reflect all the recovery of operation and maintenance costs. So it's not so good for sustainable water safety plan. It's really needed to change in the future. So that's all from Vietnam. And here, as a conclusion of my presentation, I just show you, it is an important moment. The first time in Hue City, when people can drink directly water from the tap due to the water safety plan implemented in Hue City. Thank you very much. I would like to turn over to Professor Mohan. Thank you.
Very much, Ms. Nehia, for a very elusive presentation. So it is really gives a confidence that WSP can bring a good kind of a result, especially for the people on the important topic as water. So the next speaker is Dr. S.K. Varagoda. So those who have attended the Sri Lankan conference, IWA conference, you might have seen one young person was roaming around very actively. So he was Dr. Varagoda. Dr. Varagoda has specialized in water and used water treatment and currently serving as the project director of China Sri Lanka Research Grant project attached to Ministry of Water Supply, Sri Lanka. Varagoda has obtained his BSc honors degree in civil engineering in the year 2001 and Master of Engineering degree in Water and Wastewater Treatment in year 2005. Then he has obtained his PhD degree in the year 2009, specializing in wastewater treatment. He has already got over 60 publications in reputed journals and conferences. Dr. Varegoda involves very actively in WSP application in Sri Lanka and leads the WSP advisory team, the National Water Supply and Drainage Board, since 2016. I think he has a lot of expertise on WSP implementation, especially in Sri Lanka. So I think he is going to talk about development of national action plan with the implementation of WSSP for meeting sustainable development goals, success stories from Sri Lanka. Over to Dr. Varegoda.
Thank you, Professor Mohan. I hope that everyone can hear me and wish you everyone to have a good day. I would like to introduce Sri Lanka, and Sri Lanka is having an island of 65,000 square kilometer and having 21 million people. And when we were getting into the situation in 2000 around, we didn't have anything like called water safety plan. So we were questioning how that we would be able to handle if we got an emergency. So then we got the tsunami coming in 2004, which devastated all over the Southeast Asia, South Asia especially. So we lost around 40,000 people lives. And as well, we had a big challenge in managing our water supplies. So immediately after tsunami, we did not have a solution to make sure our water quality, especially in the coastal zone. Then there we had another issue, almost like in 2006 around, that was the hepatitis A outbreak came in hilly part of the country. So where that we got around 200 people hospitalized, and this was again back a sort of eye-opening event for us, that because we did not have a proper consistently managed tool to handle our water supply systems. So when it is happening, we were just relying on the water surveillance system, which was there for a couple of years time. But we thought that why not something else to come? Is that ISO 9001 or anything else to manage this total quality management? So that is what we were thinking. So in addition to that, Sri Lanka, we are experiencing climate change impacts, adverse impacts, and Sri Lanka has been recognized as the secondly most affected country in the world in 2018 by climate change. Surprisingly, it was there in 2019 also. We rank as 6th in the world. So it's really devastating, and we had to look into this in different ways. And we were experiencing a lot of similar incidents happening all over the country in dry zone as well as wet zone. It's like coming with too little water and too high water. That is what it was there. Then apart from that, Sri Lanka is coming as one of the countries with high road density. So we got a hilly terrain in the middle part of the country, and we had a lot of incidents happening, like the road accidents, and there were a lot of occasions where that we had like contamination in the upstream catchment. So these all were making something like sort of eye-opening event to us. We were just thinking of, we were just worrying about, and later we thought that we have to have something as a very robust tool for us to go ahead with water management. So with that justification, I would like to put our heads towards what we have done thereafter. So we were keen on putting up a very robust, very resilient system here. So after going around all over the management techniques, we thought to get water safety plan as the best tool for us to handle the country. So in 2016, we had the initiations here done. Before that, we got training as well with the local expertise and as well as the international experts. So then we were very active in applying water safety plan for the very first time in the country. So when it is coming in the urban water sector, we got around 350 water supply schemes managed by the National Water Supply and Drainage Board. That is the only agency to put up safe water, pipe-borne water to the nation. As well as when it is coming in the rural sector, there are isolated small scale water supply schemes where it's got around 4,500 scattered all over the way in the country. So we started our journey somewhere in 2016. Before that, we had some inputs from APN funded, Asia Pacific Network funded project that brought Singapore as well as Sri Lanka together to share some experiences from Singapore to Sri Lanka. Then we had another chance to get ourselves into South Korea for a training 2013, but still we were struggling with the concepts. It's not like easy for us to understand the basics behind this. So then we had a very good chance by WHO. We got training in both Thailand and India for the master trainers. Then thereafter, we presented that concept into the high management of National Water Supply and Drainage Board, and they decided to help, and they made a committee, high-level committee appointed by the general manager, the chairperson of the institute, as well as National Water Supply and Drainage Board decided to have a centered unit that's called advisory unit for water supply plan. That's done in 2016. There onward, we were doing very actively, and we were all the time having trainings, and we had another very special milestone there to put up a country strategic plan. So that's done in 2016 to cover the water safety plan program from 17 to 20. So we are at the end of 2020 program, and we are very successfully following even within the pandemic situation. So then we got champions after our trainings. We selected the champions all over the way in the country. Thus we got around 50 representing all 11 provinces of the country. Then we were lucky to have supports, continuous support from the international agencies like WHO, UNICEF, and many other NGOs, and especially the government support was all the time behind the water safety plan application in the country. As the manual says, WHO manual says, without the top management support, assistance will not be able to go in a smooth way in application. Then again back, we had a great support from WHO in 2017, and we got a chance to train ourselves in India to put up this water safety plan concepts, expanding into this water safety and security, especially focusing around climate resilient WSP concepts. So then to expedite the verification process, we were keen to put up this WSP external formal auditing, probably for the first time in South Asian region, with the support from WHO funding, and we got an independent agency to select their auditors, like technical and lead auditors, who are capable in both WSP as well as ISO 9001. Then early of this year, we published our WSP country report, and that is available in the portal, as Dr. Rory said. So then actually the success behind this WSP is that because we found a lot of ground experiences. So people were so keen to put up their hands together and get whatever possible actions done in catchment, then catchment to treatment plant to distribution, then back finally in the consumer level. For these actions to happen, we wanted to get the support from different disciplines. So within the National Water Supply and Drainage Board, we got engineers, we got sociologists, we got chemists, we got geologists to come together and work together, as well as it's not just this in the hands of water suppliers. We, especially when it's getting into the catchment, we had a very good support from our other stakeholders, especially who are having the ownership in catchment. So this is where that we get a very nice sort of dialogue under module number 1, stakeholder participation. This all success came around, and we observed that we experienced this, and a couple of our water agents, regional water suppliers, they are having the technology like simple WhatsApp groups, and we find that how people appreciate the water supply in terms of water safety plan and ensuring water security and safety. We found water quality is going good, getting better and better day by day. So localized experiences and even national experiences. So we found that the chemical usage, wherever that's getting as WSP application, is working very well. So then we find the saving of power, electricity, because you don't want to backwash your filters. You don't want to go with many other activities in that like as you have done in previous. So again, back we could managed to operate our water treatment plant in the fullest capacity. So that's also helped us to expand our water supply services. And WSP says it has to be consistent. So in water, we call 7 to 24 supply. So we could manage to have uninterrupted water supply in most of the cases because of WSP application. So finally, we were happy to have consumer satisfaction, as I said, like with all this social media, we were observing, and still that's getting us good and good. So this is how we were doing, and made awareness, made a lot of other catchment activities, not only in the urban sector as well as in the rural sector. So we were active in both segments, and jointly with all partners, we try to put all the possible control measures for the existing hazards to handle it. And then finally, we found that is something getting better and better day by day. As well as, so we had some emergencies happening around the country. So I think if you got into the Sri Lankan news, you might have heard about this. The big disaster happened in one of the garbage dumping yard. Still we are having a lot of unsecured open dumping, and this is where something has happened as collapsing. So water sector, water board was very proactive in there. We had a clear disaster preparedness plan. So we diverted our pipelines, identifying the possible future hazards, and thereafter we could minimize the damage which has happened in the area. So because our pipes, if they were broken, the disaster could be even double or triple. So that is something, disaster preparedness. So that made, again, back sort of eye-opening to show that people, to convince people that the water safety plan is not just for the normal conditions, but as well as for the emergencies. That is where that we discussed in the module number 10. So these all stories were wrapped up and put into a country report, because many other countries were keen to learn here something from Sri Lanka. So I would like to be grateful to the all partners who got involved with Sri Lankans and the well-wishers. So as Ms. Payne from SEER office in India, New Delhi, she was telling that master trainers made a huge impact. Then Dr. David Sutherland from WHO technical advisor, he joined us to put up the roadmap for Sri Lanka. So Mr. Daryl is very keen gentleman to all over the way behind us to put up this training throughout the country to help a couple of times. And I would like to remind Miss Angela, who got again from Switzerland and involved with us in putting up WSP rural segment. So this all made a good way, and this whole book, the book is there available in IW portal that you can get the information. So then we were just thinking of what to be next, like to make it success and success day by day. So we thought by not putting up these ideas, our heads towards R&D, because control measures, whatever we are right now facing, might not be sufficient, might not be adequate. So we thought of having, especially to address this groundwater quality, probably like India and many other countries, we are struggling with groundwater treatment. So we are putting up different technologies. We are moving towards from RO systems to nanofiltration, thinking the TDS, which is coming as crucial for us. And we are putting up again, we're trying to put this electrolysis reversal systems for treating this hard water. So these are a couple of ideas that we are trying here, and we get again back good results. So rainwater harvesting also in a sort of user-friendly manner we are trying upon here. So these are some of the things that we are trying to put up. Apart from that, we want to bring this WSP application as a policy requirement in country, because there are not many countries who have done this. As Dr. Rory said, there are many countries who has already implemented WSP, but whenever it's coming as policy requirement, so it must be there to make it as a sustainable sort of sustainable way for us. So that is what that we are trying in this coming years. So hopefully that we are on the right track to convince people to bring that as a policy requirement. So then in addition to that, we are trying to get a sophisticated laboratory right now where I'm working here in central part of the country. So the central part of the country might be having easy access to all the corners. So we got a water testing laboratory where that we are trying to put up, bring up all this testing, advanced testing. So that's to make the verification, that's to make sure that is happening well around the country. So that is the idea right now with us. So hopefully we'd like to make this center as the center for having training, all whatever the possible ways of having promoting this WSP in the region. So inviting everybody to join us in future to bring up this concept throughout the way of the South Asia especially. I would like to hand over back my mic to Professor Mohan. Thank you.
Thank you, Varagauda. So it is really very interesting to see that you have conceptualized, you have planned, and you have implemented, and you are going on further steps also is very clear. I think this is what one will be looking at as a good kind of a satisfaction. So thank you, Varagauda, for the nice presentation. So now we'll go to the last presentation, which is going to be given by Lakshman Attanayake. So Lakshman Attanayake is a chartered water engineer, holds a Master's of Business Administration degree from the University of Leicester, UK, and has worked in water and wastewater sector over the last 38 years in both Sri Lanka and overseas. During this period, he was exposed to diverse functions involved in utility assessment, institutional capacity development, planning, construction, project management, contract management, research, and general utility management in the sector at different roles and capacities. With the technical assistance from Yarra Valley Water, he pioneered to implement the first water safety plan in Sri Lanka in the year 2010. Currently, he is working as a WASH sustainability specialist, institutional capacity development advisor, Whistling program, Act Smart Solution Private Limited, Sri Lanka. So he is going to talk about on application of IoT or ICT tools for acceleration and revitalizing WSSP implementation. Okay, so over to Lakshman for presentation. Please start.
Thank you, Professor Mohan, for your kind introduction. Ladies and gentlemen, after listening to very impressive and comprehensive presentations on water safety planning, my topic, I think, is now for you to give just an overview of IoT, IOCT tools which could be applied for acceleration and revitalizing water supply implementation. So my presentation outline is basically defining the challenges we are facing in water sector and new challenges with COVID-19 pandemic, and why water supply WSP implementation is required to be mainstreamed, and data components, and how ICT IoT could be used for WSP implementation, and proposed solutions and its features. So basically, from this picture, what you can see is this is the typical picture you see in most of the developing world in some of our systems, where failures are common and systems are intermittent, systems are unreliable. And at the end of the day, what you see is poor level of service, customers' dissatisfaction, and diverting to polluted sources by the customers. So which is very critical matter in respect of water supply sustainable development goals, where all those money that has been earmarked for implementing water supply systems for the people who do not have anything has to be diverted to these people. And that's why the WSP application strengthens the need to be strengthened to prevent focus across the whole drinking water supply system, so that we mainstream the water, WSP approach for day-to-day management in water supply systems. And with COVID-19, I think the travel restrictions, sudden road blocks, and also significant disruptions are common. And the reality is the social distancing, ground hygienic practices, good hygienic practices, and working in known territories are the main governing rules for development programs and also the infrastructure management institutions. So from the under the Vishnik program, we just thought of developing a solution that solves this matter. And the first step, I think, what we have done is we develop a program where you can identify and take a stock on the data available with the water supply system, on data that could be taken freely or data that could be paid and used by the water utility, where then what in our solution, what we basically thought is basically developing some ICT solutions for capturing this data. We are already, most of the systems, we have good customer management systems. We have PABX call center or SMS gateways or IVR call systems. So we have the provision in our system to get the outputs and to integrate into a common system. And then also we do have developed a app where you can capture the complaints coming from the customers on a GIS platform, where they have to just click a button and complain on the where it is happening, and just categorize it, and it is captured in a GIS map. And also we also have the facility where we can also take outputs from the SCADA in the current systems, and provision for including IoT applications for water level and quantity measurements integrated with the solution, linked to dashboards and instant notifications. And then on water source and assets and other operation management, we have the system where you can capture all the data and analyze the risk, and then review, verified, and monitored and audited using mobile app and web-based app, which I will speak in detail in the next slides. And then the water quality monitoring side, you also can have the provision to get the routine sample arrangement and have the laboratory connected with the web application, where they can immediately publish the water quality issues and notify, and have the system will notify them immediately. Then also there is a provision for IoT application where water quality measurements are integrated with the solution, linked to dashboards and instant notification. Then also we have, with that we are just offering SAFWAT, that is for water security, water safety and also security, which takes all these matters, all these concerns into account. And the features are basically experts, supervisors, monitors, auditors, field officers, operators, and even the people could work remotely and they can get connected in parallel. And there's a flexibility in the data collection formats, which could be worked with multilingual provision. And also there's offline data collection possible using mobile app. Geotagging an issue, when you find the issue, you can geotag it, and you can geotag a structure, and it could be captured in the GIS platform just by a click of a button. And you don't need very highly skilled GIS people, or just an ordinary person can do that by just pressing your button in the mobile phone. And all activities which could be pre-planned are calendared and reminders and sent by the mainstreaming water supply routines to the different people. This is very important, where you have all the planned preventive maintenance and monitoring functions are sent as notifications to different people who are assigned different tasks. So which is very important for good water utility management. And there's another advantage where you have basin-wide focus could be implemented for water supply, water safety planning, where you might have series of water schemes along a basin, where one of the data from one water scheme could be applied to the rest of the water schemes, where it will be advance notice on the rain happening or the high turbidity in upstream. So these are multiple and other advantages of this system. Then basically this system is designed in such a way, we are using a cloud and we use mobile apps several mobile apps, and also different applications, different interfaces for different people. Like you can have a officer in charge who is handling a water scheme, and there could be engineer. He will have a different interface. And then there's a WSP champion or a expert who will give the technical inputs, and then monitor will have different tasks to do. So then auditor also can do some audits, and all. You might have an external auditor if you like to have, and then operator or a fitter who will be working in the field. So these are the actors connected. So these people will be connected with the cloud, and you have mobile apps, web apps, and also IoT, because you would like to go for, if you want to go for very important measurements, very critical measurements to improve your resilience, maybe you have to do it. Then we have just made some trials. This is with probably, I think we have to thankful for Dr. Jayaratne. We had worked with water safety planning unit at advisory unit at Kandy, and where we tested this on pilot level, where what you can see in this your left side is the mobile app used by a field officer who is in about 350 kilometers away from this Kandy location in Point Pedro in Jaffna, and where he is capturing the data. And the right side, you see the location, the same location seen through the zoom by the experts who are staying in Kandy, where you have I think probably Dr. Jayaratne and others, his team. So they were just observing and guiding the field supervisor or the field officers to how on some matters pertaining to WSP application, especially identify the risk, and also working on risk, and also recording. So they can, one thing is they can observe, they can supervise, they can guide. So these advantages are there in our solution. Then secondly, you can also see how they worked. So basically, at least you need two smartphones. One, I think, to use the Zoom or the connectivity with the advisory unit, which will be at a different location. The expert will be sitting somewhere about 500, or maybe it's even 5,000 kilometers. Still, through the cloud, you can get connected. And you have a person who will take the capture the data, who will study this, and they will get the advices from the expert panel sitting in a remote location. So this is the another case where they have gone to the pump house and they are capturing the data. They can get the photo of the, once you capture photo, the advantage is you can also get the location of the thing. You can geotag it. So it's very convenient because you don't need a GIS expert to do that. Then this is the IoT application. Of course, IoT has different applications at different resilience, depending on the different resilience requirement. It could be maybe the risk is about high turbidity coming suddenly. So you might need the turbidity measurements done upstream. So you need the IoT accordingly. Sometimes you might have industrial pollution. You might need COD, BOD, and especially if you have this system in a basin where you have about 10, 20 intakes along this basin. I think these are very vital information for the downstream water scheme managers to use this data and ensure the safety of your water scheme. Then also, you also can do the flow measurements. You can connect all this data. For example, this quality data could be sensed, and it will be connected to a computer here, and then from there you get from the chip there you can get that to the cloud, and from there we can get to our system where you can process the data and also arrange some notifications to the relevant people. Or else there are also provision in the IoT systems that are coming now. There are alarm systems where it is only probably limited to probably the people who are staying at the water treatment plant. So I think on IoT, I think we need more time, but I will not go into detail. But basically, depending on your resilience requirement, you can design on your IoT application. So that's very important. So as a utility person, you need to find out what kind of IoT applications you need. So it's a case-by-case arrangement, and also you need to build up your business case whether you require IoT or not. Then this is the kind of another dashboard you can get. So this is a geo dashboard, sample of geo dashboard that could be developed with the mobile app I mentioned, which is available for the public, where they can capture the issue, whether it is a low pressure issue, no water, pipe burst, poor water quality, or leaks. So wherever the issue is, they just take a picture and upload to the system. It will be mapped like this. So this is very important because you can identify all the issues, and with this you can get a map of all your problems in a system. And when you are thinking about your future investment, these are the critical places where you can think of your improvements, whether you can think of your redesigns, whether you want to do some rehabilitations, whatever. Then also, these kind of dashboards also possible where you have the variation of physical, chemical, and bacteriological water quality variation along your system, maybe before the system, during the sedimentation, or after the sedimentation, during the treatment, and the reservoir points, distribution points, wherever all those critical locations, I think we can do that. Then also for WSP and support programs, we need a kind of a training of trainers, because of course, when you think of COVID, we can't have training at locations because you can't meet people. So we need to think of developing and management of water safety plans. So probably it has to be done by WHO trained experts. But there are other training that I think we have identified, like plan for optimizing use of chemicals, and non-revenue water, energy conservation, cost recovery in water utilities, and IoT for service reliability. These kind of things, I think we are now planning to develop and also introduce such training. That's very vital, because that requires some momentum taking place with the WSP implementation and water supply management within the developing world. Then with the data collection and risk assessment and verification and validation, with our solution, you can develop the improvement plan, operation plan, monitoring plan, emergency plan. And also, of course, with this, I mean, it has to be guided by an expert who may be stationed remotely. And finally, you can develop it. So with the improvement plan, operation plan, you can think of how you eliminate risk and how you reduce the risk level. And monitoring plan, they will look at what is happening with regard to the improvement plan, operation plan, and emergency plan. As Asoka said, that I think you need it very well, because you need cut off emergencies, you need disasters, so you never know what happens. So these are the things that need to be planned. Then of course, audit plan, whoever auditor, he has access to various data. If he want to do online auditing, or whether he want to do a site assisted audit by using a third person, it could be done. And also external auditor also could do the same, and whatever. And also there are dashboard that could be progressively established to monitor the water utility KPIs. This is very important. You can build up your excellence in the system by introducing new KPIs into the system, and progressively establish the monitoring with the WSP. So that availability is there. So at the end of the day, we are looking at robust and reliable water utility, ensuring service excellence. And with that, we would like to end up our presentation, and thank you very much for your patience. And also the WISH program, that is Water Infrastructure Support Service Help Link, we would like to offer you for this SAFWAT for developing, for establishing a safe and secured water available world. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Lakshman Attanayake. So it was really, you are going one step ahead. So it is really good. So let us now, before making, I would like to, we have framed some questions which for each speaker. Now let me take up the questions for Dr. Rory Moses. The first question is, what are the main challenges of in water supply during COVID-19. What are the advices from WHO regarding water safety? Can you just elaborate on that?
Okay. Thank you very much for the question, Professor Mohan. So I've touched upon already some of the main issues that's been encountered by water suppliers that we've seen at the global level. And I can expand a little bit further on that. I guess many water suppliers, like lots of other industries and people around the world, were caught unaware in terms of the extent of the pandemic and its duration, given it's still ongoing. And I think what we'd like to advise, I guess, is that, you know, in some cases, Asoka mentioned it earlier as well about preparedness as being key. Now, this highlighting the importance of preparedness can't be stressed enough. Now, even in this case where something like the pandemic was quite unprepared, what we found is that many of the challenges that suppliers have experienced due to COVID-19, even though they were unforeseen, they really are quite generic in terms of their application to other situations. So when we think about some of the issues we talked about earlier, you know, staff absenteeism, supply chain disruption, site inaccessibility, you know, all of these issues could also arise, say, from natural disasters, you know, climatic events such as flooding, bushfires, and so forth. So we would really be advising everybody to take a step back at the appropriate time. We realize a lot of suppliers are still under pressure with the pandemic at the moment, but the key message is really that preparedness and having general emergency response planning in place that can be applied to any type of emergency or shock that you may experience in the future.
Okay, thank you. I think that's a very nice message to all the people that more than whether it's a corona or COVID or anything, preparedness is the major bottleneck or one has to be prepared. The second question, what are the financial and technical setbacks due to this COVID-19 from water supply point of view? Can you elaborate on that if there is something?
Okay. Thank you, Professor Mohan. I'm interested maybe in exploring a little bit further about some of the financial impacts. We've talked a bit about the technical challenges and otherwise. So in terms of financial impacts, you know, there has been across the board cases where the ability of consumers to pay for services has been impacted. You know, people are ill, people may be out of work for long periods of time due to national lockdowns. So this has had quite a big impact. We've seen some great solidarity from different countries, giving examples where disconnections of customers may have been temporarily halted, recognizing the importance of having an adequate supply of safe drinking water as well as water for basic hygiene, and the importance of this in preventing transmission of any disease, including also the disease COVID-19. So it is very encouraging to see, but we would encourage, you know, really to be thinking about the financial sustainability of this as well from the water supplier perspective. Okay, we think that it must be backed up by having a sustainable financial solution at the national level for water suppliers. You know, we have seen some examples from countries where all water services were immediately mandated to be free of charge from urban to rural across the board. And again, we recognize the importance of this initiative, but we need to recognize that there has to be sustainable financing solutions and prompt and effective reimbursement in place from governments, be it emergency response funds or otherwise, or otherwise you'll start to see impacts in levels of service and water suppliers being able to operate. So there has been some severe financial issues that water suppliers have had to deal with along the technical issues that we've talked upon already. So we would encourage countries to be thinking about having a dedicated emergency fund if in the future they need to provide free water services, and that there's prompt and rapid distribution of these funds to water suppliers. Thank you. I think your microphone may be muted there, Professor Mohan.
Thank you very much, Dr. Rory Moses, for answering very well, and especially that emergency fund and preparedness is a major takeaway by the participants on this particular thing. Thank you very much. Now let me put two questions to Mr. Asoka Jayaratne. The first question is, in many developing countries, water supply is intermittent. Whether the available WSP tools being utilized in Australia could be applicable for intermittent water supply for these country situations. If not, what are the ways that we can adapt in these circumstances? Mr. Asoka Jayaratne.
Yeah, thanks, Professor Mohan, for the question. It's an interesting question. Intermittent supply is always a challenge if you can't provide continuous supply. There's no magic bullet, whether it's in Australia or any other country. What the water safety plan concept says is you assess your risk, and if you have intermittent supply, every time your supply stops and then comes back, I can guarantee the water is contaminated. I can guarantee, right? If you go and test that water will not pass your tests, right? So therefore, you need to have something in place in the interim until you find your permanent solution, which is continuous supply. And it's easy for me to say, but it's very difficult to do. You need to have money, you need to have resources, funding, etc. So as a water supply, if it's in our system, what we will do is we will tell the public. For example, there was a town, a rural town in Victoria, in Australia, right? They couldn't guarantee the quality of the water that's being treated by the existing treatment plant. Until that's fixed, they had a permanent boil water notice in place. So you shouldn't be afraid to tell the public that water is unsafe. And this is one of the problems. People are not, water utilities or governments or, politicians not willing to say that. But here in Victoria, for example, in Australia, we can't do that, right? We are responsible. So we will tell the public it's actually not safe to drink. So here's an example. When the chlorinator fails for a certain period of time, we have been in the news in the last few months. Yeah, we issued a boil water notice. It's no different to the intermittent supply, right? So it is the responsibility of the water supplier to tell the public it is not safe. In the interim, maybe you can, well, it may not be practical, so maybe you inform the public and say, look, every time water comes back, flush your taps for 15 minutes, for example, right? That will be better than doing nothing. And what you don't know is how many people get sick, how many people get gastro in that community, right? So yeah, so that is the answer. You're on mute, I think, again. Sorry.
Thank you very much for the nice answer. I think that's a way that we may have to look at. The intermittent water supply is a reality, but the quality is not guaranteed. So that's one of the points that we have to really
and also,
look
if you
into.
have a water safety plan, this will go into an improvement plan saying, look, without fixing this, we can't actually implement the water safety plan correctly.
Okay.
So that gives you the power, the authority to say to your management, well, we can't guarantee the supply until we fix it. So then it comes down to that.
Thank you. The second question is, what are your advices and lessons as an experienced WSP professional to developing countries, and especially not the urban areas, but also mainly on the rural areas? Can you just highlight your experience on it?
Sure. Thanks for that question, Professor Mohan. Again, that's a very challenging question for anybody. So my very simple answer to this is there's a lot of misconception about what is required to implement water safety plans. Now, I like to quote something that our regulator, Department of Health, someone in our regulator told us years ago when we were embarking on this. WSP water safety plan is not extra work. It is the work that you do. If you have a good treatment system that you control, the water supplier can control, because you are responsible. And distribution system, you are responsible. You can, start implementing water safety plans. Even if you don't know, start somewhere. So take the brave step, have a team, start a team, and start implementing, doing things that you can do. Don't talk about the things that you cannot do, right? So that way you will understand what are the biggest risks to your water supply, whether it's a catchment, whether it's a treatment. Do things you can control. So a lot of water authorities I see around the region, they say, oh, we don't have this, we don't have this. And I tell them, you do have. You can control your um, treatment step. You can control your chlorinator, you can control your turbidity, the filters. Are you controlling it? So my advice is, you have to start somewhere, and you don't need a lot of resources to start a water safety. What you need is a commitment. And I have seen a number of water authorities in the region who have taken that bold step and don't ask the question, there's no regulations, there's no act or law. We didn't start the water safety plan because it's law. The law came 15 years later or 10 years later, right? We voluntarily implemented because if you are interested in supplying safe water, start somewhere and then start developing, implementing gradually, and then you can convince your management. It's hard to do if you don't have the commitment from your management, but then you can convince your government to say, look, we need funding to improve this. And this is based on a solid risk assessment approach.
Thank you, Asoka, for the nice answer for this. I really recall the question always. We have a proverb. You don't always ask what the country has done to you, what you have done to the country.
Exactly.
Whether you are doing that very properly.
Exactly.
That's the way that we have to look at. I think that's a very good answer for it. Thank you very much, Asoka. And I would, Nikia has to leave because there was an emergency in the Vietnam for that. So I will switch over to Varagoda. Sir, my first question is, how the WSP tool succeeded in rural areas in Sri Lanka? What are the factors that are responsible for the success of implementation? This we are very eager to hear your answers or the points that will help all the participants. Yes, please.
Yes, Professor, it's a very sort of interesting question. So when we were trying WSP in the country, we started with the urban sector actually, because we got the WSP manual developed by WHO, giving these 11 modules to take up the challenges in urban sector. So, but definitely the 60% of the population, or a little more than that even, living in Sri Lanka is coming from a rural sector. So that was a big challenge for us. And actually, we started somewhere like early 2017. We got WHO expert, Miss Angela, and we were trying to use this WSP manual for the rural sector, developed with 6 tasks instead of 11 modules. So actually, then we did not try directly this WHO manual itself. Instead, that we got this simplified version even further down, made it suitable to the country situation. So actually, when it is coming the rural sector, we can't go with the technical terms, the jargons, and we can't take engineers as the prominent team to put up these concepts with chemists and geologists. Instead, that we handed over this to our sociologists, who are very keen to address this community. And whenever we got there, we were keen to get the community leaders from the rural sector. So because they are small scale water treatment facilities, so community leaders might be having a good voice among the people. Apart from that, WSP's risk assessment tool, as we discussed. So when we get the metrics, it's not like 5x5 metrics or 3x3 metrics where we have this semi-quantitative approach. Instead, that we went for a qualitative approach where that people could understand. We had some card system. We have given the red, yellow, and the green light, the color light system card, and we just ask them to raise their hands whenever they find as very crucial or like severity is very high in that way. So they used to get it, and we got this all the tools who introduced this from our sociological department to the people, and then it was made something like there are on their that the responsibility was passed to them. So that is how we made Professor to bring it up in the rural sector as something active. Now we are putting up our heads to do this auditing as well. So social participation, awareness, making people especially aware on this the successful stories and so on. So that made us ease in our way once after put up this simplified version in rural sector.
That's very nice that you have told us the secret of how you have successfully in the rural areas. My second question is how the people accept WSP in Sri Lanka overall. I'm not asking urban or rural areas. What are the ways that Sri Lanka adapted to achieve this acceptability? What are the mechanisms that you have used for WSP implementation? Many participants would like to learn from that. That's what we are asking. Please.
Yes, Professor, that's again a really challengeable sort of thing for us to address all over the way in the South Asia. Especially I find that with our master trainers coming from India, Nepal, Bangladesh, Pakistan, all over the way. So we find that is a really big challenge for us. I mean, like, so it's not the business of this general public. It's a business in hand of water suppliers. Sometimes initially people do not feel that they have a responsibility of keeping their catchment as secure as possible. So they do not feel that the importance of controlling their waste discharge back into nature. So this mentality was there. So they believe all the time waste is someone else's responsibility, not their own responsibility. So this is there. I mean, like, so with that, we had a lot of interventions here. We went through a lot of awareness programs. Especially we took the universities to come, and we got a couple of universities, like the very first university in Sri Lanka, University of Peradeniya, having their master course, and another university delivering a bachelor degree subject in this WSP applications, WSP tools and all. So we went around the country, we got our international experts also to join us and put these concepts there with the general public. Then especially we addressed the political, high-level political representatives, administration representatives like government agents, and got all the stakeholders together as much as possible into common platform and discuss about this. And we convince people that we are just out of these 4 zones. We as water suppliers having the control only within the water treatment plant and distribution. Apart from that, but other 2 zones, the catchment and the consumer level, that is in their hands. So we are trying to get newspaper articles, we are trying to put up awareness banners and all in especially catchment. We went with a lot of other volunteer activities to clean up catchment and so on. So that is what, Professor, we are doing. It's a really hard job for us to bring up that into the community level. In the meantime, as I said, we are trying to put this as a policy requirement whenever it's coming as a policy. So now the countries putting up a public utility commission. Sri Lanka is putting up utility governing and all. So then again back the SDGs there. So climate change is there. This all happening around us. People realize day by day that the importance of having a tool like this. That is how we do manage to get this to get that into the public and do it mainstreaming in different segments. Thank you, Professor. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think it is also heartening to note that you are going to make it as a policy. I think all the best, and we will be very glad to know about it, what is the development that it is taking place. And to the other news that you said, only water treatment and wastewater treatment is our job, the other side that you have to take care. I think that's a very good message to all the people, especially the administrators who are here, will be helpful. Thank you very much, Dr. Veeragowda.
Thank you, Professor.
Now I'll move on to Mr. Lakshman Attanayake. So the first question is, the major problem in many countries is creating a database on the water supply. So once the database is available, adoption is easier. But in case of data deficient situations where the data is not available in digital form, how do you feel that the ICT tool can help you a lot?
Yeah, I mean, the fundamental design of our system is where you first take a stock of the data availability in your system, whether it could be geographic data or demographic data or maybe water scheme data. You need to take a stock and see what you have. Now, I get the point you are telling me, because most of the issue is in most of the developing world water systems, you lose lot of data. And especially this happens in the when it comes to the you have two set of data, basically the above ground and the down the below ground data when you think about the assets. And most of the cases you don't know where your pipes are, you don't know where your wells are. These are one of the major issues. So with this application, it is possible you can build up your database with time, because for example, the application is there in the mobile app is designed in such a way, when you do a water excavation for a pipe burst, you can capture the location data, so which is captured in your GIS database. And then of course, when you visit your plant, you can take a picture there and make some notes on the assets there. You can look at the how you can assess the condition of your intake and just put the grade in there. Is it in grade A or grade B or whatever? So likewise, you have to build up data when you don't have data. And at the same time, I would suggest that normally such situations, what we have done in our past is also get down the past workers who are working in the water scheme, who are now retired, who are not in office, not in the organization, but call them and you have organize something for them and get their views and get their ideas, where the water pipelines are, where the details are, and also capture some data from their knowledge. So this is how we would do in such situations.
Very nice answer. My second question is, how do we utilize cloud, cell phone, if not smartphone, for WSP implementation, and for what type of practical application that you can work on it?
Yeah. Yes, of course. As explained in my presentation, basically the whole system is working on this is a cloud-based platform where our server is basically cloud, and then you have we use the mainly the smartphone and the computers for all other data inputs other than the IoT applications. So basically, when it comes to smartphones, we can capture the basically data, like capturing the current condition, asset condition, and also the you can capture the data, your geo coordinates. And same time, you can monitor activities which you have identified as important, like if someone if one utility has identified that every day you have to do some cleaning, or maybe once a week you have to do some cleaning your reservoirs, or once a month, then whether it is done or not could be reported. And same time you get a reminder from the system that you have to do this activity on a certain date. So this kind of system is there, like ongoing activities could be calendared, where routine activities could be calendared, like all your PPM activities, whether it is happening or not. So the system will remind you on this day you have to do this. So it's coming, and then the person who is in charge has to report after doing that it's done. So this is a kind of application, and also auditors can use it for auditing purpose, the monitors. So and also, even if you like, or agency like, you can give one access to your stakeholders to see what is happening, to look at the dashboards. So, and even the chairmen and the CEOs of the organization can have a look at the dashboard, how many complaints are there in the system, and he can just go into details and ask the responsible person what's happening and why it is happening, and why the certain complaint is outstanding for days. So these are the things that's the application we have. That's how we have developed the application.
Thank you. And I have a small corollary question. Your presentation is mainly focusing on the new approach of WSP implementation. The same thing can be applied to rural areas, whether it is possible or it is difficult. What is your reaction?
Yeah, it's a very, very good question, Professor. Really speaking, I mean, I mean, there's no discrimination when you go to the rural, as Dr. Veeragoda said. I mean, the WSP application has been very much simplified because the context in rural is very different from the urban. And of course, you don't get a lot of high-tech applications there, but we, of course, the same system, you can adapt to the rural context by certain modifications. Some certain steps may not be required, and still WSP application is possible. And even if you have the issue of signal strength there, you don't have the mobile coverage, still it is possible, because our solution, we can capture data offline and upload in when you have the connectivity with the system. So that is possible.
Really good. I think even they will also have a great hope on doing the WSP implementation. So thank you very much, Lakshman.
Thank you very much.
Nice answer. It is my responsibility to just summarize what it has gone. So Rory has providing a broad overview on the impact of pandemic on water players. He underlines a key learning, which is emergency situation exacerbate existing shortcomings. He highlighted how water safety planning is integral to improve climate resilience of human community. Whereas the second speaker, Asoka, has focused on pre-pandemic reality, response to the pandemic, and his view on the post-pandemic new normal. I think this word is very nice. New normal is what I have also learned. He focused on the established framework around emergency management linked to Module 8 of the WSP manual and the infra in place to monitor the water supply network closely with the digital tools. With the existing framework ably adapted to the pandemic situation, Asoka throw light on the new tools like asset map for plumbers and pipe tracker for them to perform maintenance efficiency. Whereas a third speaker, Nehia, highlighted the reality of spaghetti-like underground network of water and sewage pipelines and the associated water safety issues. He focused on preventive and proactive steps than traditional approach of it being too little and too late. And he is more focused on the module 4.3.11 and successful case study from Vietnam and how WSP implementation leads to new WQ standards. Whereas the fourth speaker, Veeragoda, mentioned about their WSP in Sri Lanka, multiple stakeholder collaborate of the water supply system. WSP integral to ensure efficient operation of water utilities using cloud and phone. And also he brought up that it can be applied to rural areas without any modification. And also he brought forth focus on the new solution which integrates digital tools in a way that is user friendly and requires only very little training. So overall, I think this webinar has been very successful. In fact, I can say from my side, I have learned a lot, and all the speakers are very put a lot of effort to preparing their presentation, and I also feel that the time is very limited, 12 minutes, but I think they have done an excellent job. So let me join all the participants in clapping to all the speakers. So thank you very much, and I am now handing over to IWA Sri Lanka.
Thank you very much, Professor Mohan, and all the panelists for excellent and insightful presentations. So I'm pretty sure that this session will make all the participants' life easier. So it's an extreme pleasure to be with all you today, and it is very nice to say that today we had more than 250 participants from many countries in all over the world. So very nice to have the session today. So here I would like to thank all the participants for all the active and your valuable questions. We are going to record this webinar, and all the answers to the questions will be made available soon after the webinar. So finally, I would like to extend my thanks to IWA India Secretariat for all the support, and Institution of Engineers Sri Lanka Water Forum, and IWA Communications team, and all the personalities who supported us. So with that, we would like to conclude the session, and we will meet you again with our next session. So if you haven't yet become an IWA member, we would like to invite to join with us. So you can use this discount code, and you can have 20% discount of the membership fee. So with that, I would like to thank you all again, and until we meet again, stay safe and stay positive. So thank you all. Bye.